Back to Dlamini in Soweto, where Silindelo Masikane continues to track developments there. And Slee, I understand you've had the opportunity to speak to the family of Khayalethu Magadla. I can't even imagine, seeing them earlier on gathered there at the point at which that manhole cover is, where their child was last seen. I can only imagine what they must be feeling 7 days after the child went missing.
I think it's absolute torment for any parent to be able to actually imagine what this family is going through. It's simply just unacceptable in terms of how this particular incident took place, especially because Khayalethu was at a place that is supposed to be safe. This is a park. Earlier on, we were seeing other children actually playing here, and I think as a parent, it's really simply just heartbreaking to see them going through this. We had an opportunity to speak to one of Khayalethu's uncles, who was here with a couple of his aunts early in the morning. In fact, the family has been monitoring progress in terms of the search, and as you've heard from some of our colleagues, what they've been going through the past couple of days in terms of how this particular search actually began. In fact, that prayer session that I showed you a little bit earlier on has actually concluded, and we are seeing some of those family members now actually returning, moving away rather from that particular manhole. In fact, we've seen community members as well kind of coming to the park and seeing exactly what kind of progress is being made. But Khayalethu's uncle saying really all the family needs at this point is closure. All the family needs at this point is to have his body recovered so that that process of healing can actually begin, that process of closure. I think as Africans, we know that until we have the actual mortal remains, it's very difficult to begin that process. And we know the kind of traditional rituals that need to take place once a loved one is no more. So let's just take a listen to what Khayalethu's uncle actually had to say with regards to these search operations.
Sizizwa kahle ithambo lingakatholakali because sekuyi 7 days manje. So asiphathekanga kahle njengoba simile ngapha uphenyo lusaqhubeka njengoba kubonakala amagandaganda. We hope ukuthi khona into ezoyenzakala namhlanje, ithambo lelo lizotholakala, ibody leyo into esesifisa le ukuthi iyenzakale because asina hope ukuthi ukhaya ngabasaphila nje manje. Sikhathazeke kakhulu siwumndeni. Nomphakathi nje ukhathazeke kakhulu.
All right, let me bring in Pule Letshwiti-Jones. And Pule, you were tracking that story, as we said, from day one. You just heard the conversation that I've just had with MMC David Dembe of Public Safety in the city of Johannesburg. And one of the questions that I was asking was about ensuring the safety of children where they play, particularly around this issue of manhole covers. I do recall hearing you raising this question. What did you make of the answers that he was giving?
Well, I think first we need to try and see if we can corroborate the statements we've received from community members and the MMC. So firstly, the MMC speaks about them having to embark on a program where they will ensure that they work with the police officials and rather the Minister of Police, Kailee, to establish a unit that will look into the vandalizing of properties and ensure that criminals are held to account. But when you speak to ward councillors there in the area and Dlamini and community members, they are of the view that this is something that has been said for quite so many years. In fact, they are saying and alleging that the park hasn't received enough infrastructural development for the past 4 years. So you can imagine that those are some of the grievances that have gone unnoticed for quite some time. And they believe that it had to come to this point where a little one falls into a manhole before authorities can actually begin to start responding to some of these crucial matters. And he also speaks about him having to visit the park tomorrow, if I stand to be corrected, with another official responsible for parks in Johannesburg. This is something I believe the community will gradually welcome. But however, they they will want to hear how there will be change and timelines as to when that change will happen. Because coupled with that, there are issues of service delivery to us, which includes not having enough lighting around the park. If you go there, it gets quite dark. By the time it's 6 o'clock, it's already dark. The grass is quite high, and therefore this creates a haven for criminals to hide into and start beginning with their operations as well. But most importantly, there isn't any community police forum in that area, or any security guards patrolling to ensure that some of those facilities are not vandalized. So these are just a litany of challenges that have been building up for quite some time and has now led to this point that we're seeing right now here. And at the fore of this, again, it's quite important to say we've also tried to reach out to Joburg Water for comment in terms of what has been happening with the development of the split chamber, which is now what the EMS is relying on in terms of recovering the body of 6-year-old Khayalethu Magadla. And they haven't responded. I mean, we've been chasing them for a week right now, and it's quite, concerning that to date they haven't said anything to us.
Yeah, we'll get to you explaining for us, for our benefit, what exactly a split chamber is, because one of the benefits of being a reporter is that you learn a little bit about everything, really, because today it's this story, tomorrow it's another story, and you learn a little bit about everything as you go. But let me bring in Lindo. And Lindo, I was speaking to David Tembe a few minutes ago. The other official who's been key in this whole response has been the mayor of the city of Joburg, Mpho Phalatse. And you spoke to her about the issue of replacing the lids that are, cover the manholes, and also putting some kind of alerting devices, more technology being brought in as a solution. When that finally happens, it probably will be a welcome development.
Well, Silas, perhaps let me just be frank in terms of my answer, and I'm going to try and slow down here. First of all, you're speaking about the mayor, you're speaking also about David Tembe, and these are all people that are in charge in terms of reacting to the problem. But the problem, as David Tembe, the public safety MMC, has said or alluded, is the fact that since 2004, might be even earlier, there has been a problem of manholes in Johannesburg that have seen a loss of life. I remember my colleague not so long ago in Orange Farm as well attended to such an incident where a child went into a manhole and was later found dead. So this is a similar situation. It's recurring from as early as 2004. But the people that must be, mentioned, named and shamed, if you will, is the Johannesburg Water. They are the ones that are responsible for the 1.3 plus manholes in the city of Johannesburg. And since 2004, and I can say it again, or even earlier, they have not done anything to try and solve that issue. In fact, my colleague Pule is alluding to the fact that they have not come to the party. They've just sent technicians to divert water as this search continues, but they have not come to account for the problems that were there in 2004 and that are there now in 2022. So I think it's important to name and shame that the incumbent in terms of this particular issue, the ones that are responsible for this issue, Johannesburg Water, have not come to the fore to actually try and explain what is happening, what their plan is, what they've been experiencing as far as theft and vandalism is concerned. But I can tell you in terms of the move that now is being made by reactive forces such as public safety MMC, of course, responsible for emergency management services, as well as JMPD. He's speaking about issues of saying that they're trying to guard these areas. They're going to deploy people and deploy units to guard and against vandalism. And also you speak about the fact that EMS now is trying to find creative ways of trying to find the child, but the genesis of the problem is the issue of saying that Johannesburg Water, for these so many years, from 2004 to this date, has not found solutions, has not come up with plans to guard against these issues. On another note, Tulas, you speak about the parks that are in Soweto. Let me just speak about parks that are in Soweto. The one that is in Dlamini is no different from some of the parks that I grew up playing in. Dobsonville parks are similar. They have manholes all over the area. Another park that is fairly new, I'm sure it was built towards 2010. It is in Zola, just in Zola 1. It is near a river stream. and it has an abundance of manholes. So this is a situation as far as, these townships are concerned. Because of the congestion and the lack of space, they put these parks anywhere. But let me speak about what the mayor spoke about in terms of their reactive response towards these issues. Their response is to say that they are aware that there's an abundance of parks that actually have these manholes and that are in these dangerous areas. So what they are saying is that as the city of Johannesburg, they have tried to come up with solutions together with Johannesburg Water that has not spoken to us. But Johannesburg Water essentially is working on a prototype in terms of finding devices that would tell them or alert them when it comes to 1.3 million of these manholes. But they are saying that they are going to put these particular devices in manholes that are in parks or in areas where they know that human life might be at stake. So these devices would tell them when these manholes are being tampered with. Now remember, the reason why these manholes are being tampered with is because they have some value as far as scrap metal is concerned. They are built in with some steel that can be used to actually get some money by these criminals. So those are all of the issues, but they are saying that one of the responses they have is to try and put devices that would detect when there is a tampering in terms of these particular manholes. And they are saying that they're going to put these devices to these, not all manholes, to manholes that are near parks, that are near areas where people might find themselves in danger. So this is a plan, but I can say to us that it's reactive. It is not the genesis of the problem. The genesis of the problem is that Johannesburg Water is sitting on their hands. They are not doing anything. Their mom in a situation where there's a child, another child in 2022 that has fallen into a manhole. They are not speaking about the problems they are facing. They are not speaking about the solutions that they might have. And it is through the city of Johannesburg mayor that we find some form of communication in terms of what they might be planning. Take a listen to Mpopala, the executive mayor of the city of Johannesburg, telling us some of the plans of Johannesburg Water, who is responsible for these manholes, but has not said anything 7 days into a search of a child that should not have fallen in their manhole.
A lot of our manhole covers do have some metal that has some street value, and it attracts thieves and vandals, unfortunately. Joburg Water tells us there's about 1.3 million manholes in the whole city of Johannesburg, spanning our entire 12,000 kilometer sewer system. As much as we do our own inspections, we also rely on communities to report when there's manhole covers that are missing. And the community here claims that those manhole covers were reported. However, the system that Joburg Water uses does not have these reports. We will be investigating to find out who they were reported to. Perhaps they were reported to an individual who did not pass on the information. So we need to find out where those weaknesses in communication are. We have spoken with the MMC and the MD that we potentially need to do an awareness campaign to inform and educate residents on how they can assist the city to identify manhole covers that have been stolen, vandalized, given the huge amount and the capacity that we have in the city. So that's something that we hope to improve going forward, and we will investigate in this particular case as to how that report was done and where the problem was. As of now, the manhole where this happened has been covered. The community has shown us another one. The MD for Joburg Water has assured us that tonight it will be secured and tomorrow morning construction will happen. We're using alternative means to close the manholes. We're avoiding metal because of the street value that causes these kinds of occurrences. We are concerned about the safety of our children.
So let's wrap it up then with Silindelo Masikane out in the search area in Dlamini in Soweto. Sli, as we approach sunset on day 7 of this search, all this family can do now really is just hope and pray that what they've accepted, that they will be receiving remains of this child, that does happen so that it gives them an opportunity to find closure, I suppose.
Certainly so, and Sunday being a holy day, like I told you earlier on, we've been seeing a lot of activity around prayer here at this particular base point, especially around the manhole in which it said that Khayalethu had fallen through. And I think for this family at this point, their spirituality and actually putting their hope in something bigger than us here on earth is something that they're trying to exercise, as well as with the support of their churches and the community, in fact, as a whole. I just want to take you back to that prayer session, Thulasizwe, because I think it really hits home as to the emotional impact this is having on the family as well as the community that, of course, is fearing for their own children in this type of a situation. Let's take a listen.
Pule, you get the last word. In the last 7 days of covering the story, we are all learning quite a bit about public safety, the spaces where children play, engineering, subterranean water systems, but also importantly now, search and rescue processes. How important is this split chamber that you guys keep mentioning? What is a split chamber, and how important will it be in the days to come in trying to help this family, recover the remains of this child?
Yeah, well, Thulas, all hopes on pinning and rather recovering the body of this child relies on the key central point, which is the split chamber situated next to the Avalon Cemetery in El Dorado Park. And the functioning of this is to actually separate sewage and debris. And that's what the Joburg water officials are trying to do currently by sucking out some of the debris, which will then hit the net. And they hope by so doing, it will unblock all of that rubbish within that plant there, and they believe by so doing they could actually or possibly recover the body of little Khayalethu within that debris that they would be sucking from the plantation there. And as so it is right now, they've actually tried to unblock all of the pipelines streaming to this essential point. Quite dangerous, but EMS has committed themselves to doing that for the next couple of days until they make sure they recover the body of Khayalethu Magadla. But just, as a final, wording to us, what's important here is to actually mention, like Lindokuhle said, that it's quite important that there be accountability here, that, the Department of Joburg Water actually comes to the fore and tell us what is going on, what is the next step of direction, and not just give plans without telling us what they will be doing next to avoid such a similar incident from happening in future again.
Certainly. All right. Thank you for that. Our reporters there, Silindelo Masikane, Pule Letshwiti-Jones, as well as Lindokuhle Xulu, unpacking what at face value would seem to some to be a particular story about this one particular child. But actually, as you've heard in the last 45 minutes or so, actually it peels away, and more issues of safety of children do come to the fore.